Hi, it's Tom. In the previous video, we got our project to the point where the click interface was working. We're able to click on the picture box, which causes controls, which are wired to different events, to appear in this home area panel. When we click on these controls, we're able to move them to the other panel, and we can also move them back. We want to add a new feature in this video, and that is a drag and drop type of interface. So when I click this radio button right now, what happens is it just resets everything. I can still add controls to the home area, but it's still a click interface. So we're going to be making some modifications so that this feature actually works with drag and drop. A couple of events that we'll look at for the card box. We're going to look at the mouse down event. So that's what's going to initiate our drag and drop. And then we'll also look at the drag drop event for the panel. So that'll be, the drop part mostly. And then we'll look at a couple of other events that we'll add to just make it a little bit smoother. In the code, what I'm going to do is I'm looking in the fields and properties section, and if you scroll down, you should see a comment that says refers to the card being dragged from one panel to another. So what I'm going to do is at the form level, in the form scope, I'm going to create a card box reference called drag card, which will be private to the form. What I'm going to use this reference for is when I initialize the drag operation, I'm going to identify which control I'm actually dragging using this reference. Next, we'll write an event handler for mouse down for the actual card box control. So I'm looking for my card box event handlers. And I've got a comment that says initiate a card move on the start of a drag. So the event that we're going to use for this, as I said, is mouse down. So it's card box mouse down. You'll notice that the mouse down event has a mouse args as its second parameter, so it's a little bit different than, say, the click event. Also, too, it's good to understand the difference between mouse down and click. So a click is the whole operation when you press the mouse button and lift it up, as opposed to mouse down where the pointer is over whatever component you're on, and you press the mouse button but you haven't lifted it yet. That's when the mouse down event happens. So if you have events for both of them, both the click and the mouse down, when you click, you might end up with a little bit of a conflict there. So what are we going to do? So when we mouse down over an object, what we want to do is we want to figure out, based on the sender, we want to convert the sender into a card box, and that's what we want to refer to with the drag card reference. So it'll be drag card equals sender as card box. And again, we're used to this by now. We want to make sure that conversion worked, so we'll do it as part of an if statement. So if the drag card is not equal to null, which it would be if it wasn't able to convert it properly. All right, so if that's good to go, what do we want to actually do? Well, we've already stored the card, so we have it sitting there in that, well, it's not necessarily stored, but referred to. So we can refer to drag card in the other, in the drag drop event handler for the panel. But what we want to do now is we just want to basically have some visual cue to the user that a drag drop operation is actually happening. So to do that, we're going to call a method called do drag drop. So do drag drop basically starts the drag operation. It specifies what data is being dragged. In our case, it's drag card, and it's also affecting the mouse pointer with this drag drop effects .move. So we're going to see when we run this that I'll get my mouse pointer will change so it looks like something is moving. So let's go back up to PB click and we will wire this event to the card box in the appropriate circumstance. So previously we were wiring the click event sort of no matter what. We're going to modify this code slightly. You can see the comments are already in there, where we're only going to wire click conditionally if the actual radio button is checked. Otherwise, we're going to wire mouse down, as well as some other events later on. So let's do that. So if the click radio button is checked, then I want to wire card box click. Otherwise, I want to wire the drag drop ones, and the only one we've really started is the mouse down right now. All right, let's see how this looks so far. We haven't coded anything about dropping it, but at least starting the drag. So here's my interface. If I add some cards, I still have the click interface going, and that still works, which is good. I'll switch over to the drag interface, add some cards. Now when I click on the cards, nothing is happening. So that's cool. If I drag on the card, you can see I've got a little icon saying, I can't drop this here. That's the visual cue that I'm getting. Now the problem is, of course, I can't drop it on anything. So that's something that we'll need to modify. So we're going to add two new event handlers. One of them is for drag enter into the panel. And the other one is going to be for drag drop, which is basically dropping on a panel. Now these two event handlers are going to be for both panels. So I'm not just going to go into Designer and add individually each of those event handlers for each one. What I'm going to do rather is I'm going to actually code each of those event handlers and then wire them to those controls. So if I scroll down a little bit in the 190-ish range, you can see I've got some comments for make the mouse pointer a move pointer when this is the drag enter one. And then right underneath that, move a card control when it's dropped from one panel to another. So that's where we're going to be adding some code. So the first one, I'm going to call it panel drag enter. Okay. Notice that these type of events have a drag event args for the second parameter. All right. So this one's going to be dead simple. All I want to do is, as soon as I drag over a panel that I can drop onto, I just want to change the mouse pointer from that do not enter symbol to the move pointer. So to do that, I actually use that second parameter E, and I choose the effect property, and I change it to drag drop effects dot move. All right, and you can see there's actually a few other ones. All copy link. Okay, move is the one that's most appropriate for what we're trying to do. All right, so that one's really straightforward. The next one we'll do is, okay, so once we've actually dropped it on the panel, what do we want to have happen? This one's going to be a little bit more involved. I'm going to call it panel drag drop, and again, object sender drag arguments E. I'm just going to encapsulate that block of comments that I've already got there, and we'll start coding. So the first thing I check is if there's actually a card box control to move. Okay, so maybe I've dragged something else onto the panel or something along those lines. But if there is a drag card, then I want to continue the operation. So, oops. So as long as drag card is not equal to null, then I'm basically good to go here. So that will incorporate basically all of that. If it was null, then I essentially don't want to do anything. Now, I want to know whether I'm dragging from the home panel and going to the play area, or dragging from the play area and going to the home panel. So we had this sort of dynamic before in a different method. So I'm going to do that. I've created two panel references. I've called it this panel and from panel. Okay, so this panel is the sender panel, okay, which is basically just where I've dropped it, and the from panel is going to be the drag card parent as a panel. So both of them as a panel. So I better check to make sure that neither one of these is null, which would indicate a conversion issue. So if this panel is not null and the from panel is not null, again, we're going to do some things. Now, it's possible that I've dragged a card box from one panel and then dragged it onto the same panel, in which case I don't want anything to happen in that circumstance. So as long as the panels are not the same, I'm going to move a card box. So let's do that. So if this panel is not equal to from panel, I'm ready to do some things. Oops, that comment actually goes above. There we go. So we're going to remove the card from the panel it started in, add the card to the panel it was dropped in, and then realign both panels. From panel.controls remove drag card. This panel.controls add drag card, and then realign cards, this panel and from panel. Now that I have these two event handlers for my panels, I'm going to go back over to Designer, and I'm just going to use Designer to wire them to these two panels. So I'll click on one of them, I'll go to Events, click on Play Area, and of course I'm looking for Drag Enter. Let's use the little pull down here. There's panel drag enter is what I want to use for that. And drag drop. I'll do the same thing for home area. Save that all up. And let's try this. So I'll click on Start. Just make sure my click interface still works. It does. I'll click on drag, it resets. We'll add some cards, and I'm going to take the 7 of clubs here and I'm going to drag it over. Notice when I drag it now, I get the move mouse pointer when I'm over the panel. So that's the drag enter happening. When I release, it completes the drag drop operation, and it actually, as we can see, it actually moved the card. I'll drag another one over. Okay, and then drag it back. So this is working out okay. The only problem right now, and see if I can demonstrate this, if I grab onto this 8 of hearts, for example, and I drag it into the panel, I haven't dropped it yet, but you can see I've got the right mouse pointer. But if I drag it over top of another card, you'll notice that it's not liking that. So it's not letting me drag it over top of another card. And the reason being is because the mouse pointer is not over a panel right at this second, it's over a card box control. So what we're going to do is, in the context of this application, I want dragging over a card box to more or less be the same thing as dragging over the panel. So let's make that happen. We'll head back into the code, and where I'm looking is for my card box event handlers. And if I scroll down, I've actually got these partially coded for you. So there's a card box drag enter and a card box drag drop. So essentially what I want to do in both cases, oh, it looks like I've actually already got them coded here. Yours won't necessarily be like this. But essentially what we're doing here, I'll uncomment this for now so you can see it better, is we're taking the card box, the sender as a card box. Simplify that name a little bit. Checking to see if the conversion worked. We've done that a number of times. And if it did work, all I want to do is I want to do the operation on the parent panel instead. So I'm going to call panel drag enter, and what I'm going to send it is the parent for the card box. And then just the drag event arguments, I'm just passing that along as well. So essentially that's what we're going to do for the drag drop as well. So I'm going to just uncomment it here. Yours, you might actually have to type this in, or maybe I'll leave it like this actually. For the starter file. I don't need that extra qualification because I'm using the My Card Box namespace. So grab sender, convert it into a card box. If it's not null, this time I'm doing drag drop instead of drag enter. So with those put in there, of course I have to wire them. So I'm going to go back up to picture box stack click, which I believe is here. Yeah, pb deck click. So before where we wired mouse down, we'll also wire the other two. So it'll be a card box dot drag enter, and a card box dot drag drop. And we'll test it out. So when I run it, I'll switch it over to the drag mode, add some cards. I'm going to drag one of the cards over, so that works the same as it did before. I'm going to drag it back. This time though, I'm going to drag it over the cards, and you can see I don't get the do not enter mouse pointer anymore. I still have the move mouse pointer because it's basically doing the same drag enter that the panel is. So I'll release, and the drag drop actually works. All right. You'll notice when I drag over a card, it doesn't actually insert the card there because it's doing it based on my realign cards method. I could modify that method so that it preserved the order of the cards a little bit better. However, I think this is good for now. So that concludes this tutorial. Hopefully you picked up a few things that were useful. Thank you very much.